Okay, so last week I was searching. Don't know why I couldn't identify the MCAMX. So under documents, right now I'm on the class computer, so we're looking at 2018. So one of the things that's going to be an issue is if I kind of keep jumping back and forth, is my configuration won't carry over, won't cross over. But I do want to kind of run through from the start one more time, just the quick setup. If you are walking up to a system, you don't have an MCAMX configuration file to copy over. So basically what I would do is if we can right click and send this to my external drive, great, shoot it over there. And then what you would do is plug in your external drive on whatever computer, copy it off of the external drive, navigate back over to your documents, the My Mastercam 2018-2020 down to the configuration file, paste it and let it overwrite. It's just reading the information in that file and should be okay. If you wanted to make a backup of this, maybe rename it OEM, so if something terrible happened that it wasn't in there, you would have a backup copy to fall on. So if we need to, we'll take a look at doing that in lab. But just wanted to point out that that location. All right, so the quick setup was to come over to File and Preferences. Go to the options. Sorry, I was thinking in configurations. What was I just looking at that had preferences in it? All right, so again, the jumping right through. Last week's video had the kind of line by line. So what I'm looking for is I do not want to use the gradient. And so gradient background direction, if we say no, that will switch it to just the background. And let's see, I think we decided that the white or the gray is fine. And again, the plus is letting you set for this, this session. All right, and then jumping down next from the colors would be to the screen. And under the grid settings, I like 1 inch spacing with a size of 25, that's fine. And there are other ways to manipulate the origin than coming in here and shifting the origin, so I would stay away from that origin, just looking at it real quick. Not really doing anything with the view. And the view settings, the middle button wheel, we are set to rotate. That is probably my preference. I'm used to it rotating anyway. And then if you want to reverse the wheel, you're used to Autodesk. You can come under that one and reverse the wheel. When I hit OK, that's going to save into my settings, or save all of these settings back into that configuration file. And then things that I want to look for under the view was to show the grid. So very last toolbar, I can show the grid. I don't really want to snap to the grid. What I determined by going up to 1 inch last week is can kind of see them there. They're pretty light. Probably not going to show up very well in the video, but there are little dots every 1 inch for reference. So if that was something I was going to use, I would pick some darker than the gray, so than the light gray. All right, so a couple other things. If we right click, I just did it from the other one, was under the file and going to the options. Then these are the items that are showing up on the quick access toolbar, is the very upper left. Coming down to customize the ribbon. We're not using solid surfaces. We do need the wireframe, model prep. I don't do a lot of drafting. The view will probably leave at the end, but the machine, I'm going to move it up next to the wireframe because those are the two that I use most commonly. And then on the context menu, this is what's going on in your right mouse button. So one of the items we were looking for was F3 or F4. That is also analyze distance or analyze property. So we'll take a look at that when we get into sketching. So If we wanted to add something to the right mouse button, have it show up when we click, then we'd be able to identify it over here somewhere and push it over to the mix. And then under the option, let's see what large icons looks like. I think that's just going to make everything a little bigger. No. So maybe already set up for my screen size. All right. The main thing is I've kind of managed how much of this information I'm going to use, what I'm going to be looking for, and can get to it, I guess, a little bit easier. I'm not having to search through. I know that views on the end, my modification, probably would have put drafting at the very end, but wireframe and machine are the two most common that I'm going to work with. So I want those next to each other and available. All right, so let me figure out which way my screens go. So flying in the first assignment, when we look at the part, let's see if we're going to be able to zoom this out a little bit. I want to be able to move it around a little. So as the looking at our part drawing, we have several pieces of information. They're drawing from the center. So the datum center, origin center at the very middle of the part, it's your choice. There are, say 20 people in the class, there are 20 different ways to draw this. The end result is that you're going to end up with line geometry that we can program to that is going to be able to hold the tolerances. So my natural tendency is to go ahead and draw this into quadrant 4. There's some things that we can take advantage of that if we draw it around the center, and again, if you're not familiar with quadrants, then upper right, positive, positive is quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is X negative, Y positive. Quadrant 3, negative, negative. And quadrant 4, positive, negative. All right. Mainly that comes back to the programming when we talked a little bit about the work stops in the introductory material. Is natural habit is to set the stop on the left side of the part and the fixed jaw is on the back of the part, so that when you're loading the part, usually right-handed, the part slides in, you close the vise with your left hand, you're making sure that it's in place. That's kind of the simple ergonomics that drive. There is nothing that says it always has to be on this back left. There are good reasons why it's on the back left of the part, and most people will expect it to be there. But there are times where I've wanted to retain a datum, that this surface and all the geometry that came off of it, I want to flip it over left to right, and then I will set the work stop on the right side so that the exact same datums that I created the part with are retained throughout the rest of the operations. All right, but those are decisions that that we make a little further along. All right, so drawing, I think I will go ahead and stay with my my natural. It's going to drive whatever decision we make. It's going to drive future decisions as we go along. So if I'm drawing this in quadrant 4, I'm probably going to be I'm definitely have to do some math, come up with the calculations on this. If we draw it around the center, then I can just go to those numbers. So we'll see how long this takes, and then we may do it both ways. Now the recommendation is you watch the first one. I tend to go a little bit faster than and I always say that there's only one speed in industry, and that's as fast as you can go. So I'm throttling back quite a bit to get to a point. But once I get a little frustrated or twitchy, nervous about something not working the way I want it, then fingers start taking off, and next thing I know, I've lost. So we will kind of work through this and maybe go through it a couple times. But watch it the first time, then go back and watch the videos. We'll have the lab time to go through and pick it up. All right, so first thing is 2.5 by 2.5, and I'm going to be drawing over in quadrant 4. So I set for the rectangle tool. I could draw 4 lines. If I draw 4 lines, I'm going from the intersection over 2.5, down 2.5, over 2.5, 2.5. The rectangle tool is basically taking care of that for me. So I want a width of, I hope, are you going to let me have it? All right, there it goes. I clicked, but I didn't see it highlight. So I'm wondering if my highlight's working like it's supposed to. All right, so if I want these to stay, I can put in those values, but as soon as I come out into the screen and start moving around, there's a possibility these are going to change on me. So if I switch them to a lock condition, they're going to stay in position, and notice that it's going up into quadrant 1. All right, so I have a positive and a positive value. That means my height really needs to be negative. So if I hit the tab button and move over and let it snap to the origin, and that little symbol is telling me it's finding a location, then we can get it to position. Yeah.
Is there a way to pan around the screen without using the mouse wheel? Because mine doesn't work. So.
All right, so that was the rotate. We could switch it over on the configuration to have it pan. But on the right mouse button, I believe there is a pan operation. So we'll take a look. We'll draw this first piece of geometry, and then we'll take a look at pan. All right, so once I click on that value, we are in the cyan, which is kind of painful to look at. So this would be someplace to come back to the home tab. And let's see if we clear colors. It's a little bit darker, a little more visible. Definitely not as painful to look at. So we'll go with that one. All right, so if I right click, we have fit. So fit would blow everything up to the screen size. We come over to view. So I think we would either need to go back into our customize and go to the context menu, and then under view, this would be a good example to carry over once we identify something that we would use or isn't there. Let's see if it goes under graphics view. So I have the zooms, there's my pan, I highlight pan and we add it. And then if I drag, I believe I can drag it to the top. All right, so now when I hit the right mouse button, that pan is going to be added to the list. And right click and go to pan. And now we're moving the screen around, or moving the object around on the screen. All right, once we get out of it, click or let go of the click. I was holding down the left mouse button. Once I release, that's going to kick me out of the command. Now I'm doing whatever again, and we'd have to right mouse button and pan again to get it to go. All right, so let's say we're going to be doing some math. The other thing that I could do for the center is if we wanted to utilize the levels. I don't feel like I introduce levels enough. One of the things with levels, especially if you're used to layers from other programs, these are not layers. The colors, the line weight, the attributes are independent, right? If I wanted to set a level, it can have level 10. It's green and it's a dash line and a heavier line weight. Well, I could have a level 11 also be green and level 12 also be green. What we're basically setting it up for is a way of grouping or identifying geometry so that we can visualize it, turn it on and off easily. So just as an example, I'm going to give this the name of 10. I like to go by separation and give it a decent amount. So the level set. Enter a level name, and it should have either that or it's off my screen. And display. Oh, went the wrong way. So level 10 name is, I'm going to use this for my construction lines. Went backwards on that one. All right. So this one is active. If I want to view the one with the check mark, that is now my current level. If I come up to the visible and hit the X, that geometry is going to go away. It's not going to be visible. All right, so for the construction lines, then I can go back to wireframe, and we're going to look for those snaps. And because I'm drawing on level 10, this is going to participate on level 10. So I can go from midpoint to midpoint, and then I'm going to accept. And then OK and create new operation is going to keep me in the command. And then I go look for the next midpoint, come over and snap. Okay, and then I'm through drawing lines, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. At this point, I'm going back to my object geometry. So if I were to come back and, oh, that was where it went. All right. If I make these objects, then now the construction lines can be visible, not visible, and I can toggle back and forth to what I want to be able to see. So if we give them the names, you have to decide how useful this is to you. If it's a simple part, we're not going to get very much into it. But if I have fixture geometry that I want to see in the background and be able to toggle from, I have a line that's going to act as doing a weird toolpath, or have it follow something that I wouldn't normally do, or have it lie to it, then I would be able to build up into these levels. All right, so over into the circle, we have two circles. One is a diameter of 0.75 and one is a diameter of 2 inches. And so we have radius or diameter. Since we're given the diameters, I'm going to put in the 0.75 and I'll go ahead and lock the diameter. When I pick the center point, all right, or the intersection, then it's going to snap to that location.
If you don't lock it, does it, you click the center and then you select the diameter?
Let's do that on the next one. Is as you move around, it has the ability to be able to adjust. So I pick it and then I start moving. Now the first one, it stayed in lock, but the second, oh, actually I did not accept the first one. So when I changed it to 2 inches and hit enter, it actually put it at 2 inches. So if we come back over to 0.75 and hit that one, and then we do the accept, okay, and actually, well, let's go ahead and accept, and then it leaves me in the operation. So I'm hitting the little check mark with the plus so that I can continue to draw circles. All right. So we are at 2.5 inches, and half of that would be 1 1/4. So the first hole location for the 250 diameter, we would go 250 on the diameter. I do want to lock it. And one thing with the arrows is if we've entered those values previously and we're going to return to those values, you can do a little pull down and select them a little bit quicker. All right, so enter a center point. So if we come out here and I start, no, that was the other one. Let's see if I can get it close. Yep, that was, oh, Control Z that one. So center point, reselect. I jumped out too quick. Let's go ahead and accept it. Take a look at it. All right, so I'm getting rid of the other circle. So I have the first position, but because I set it in place, I'm not sure what it snapped to, or if it snapped at all. So if you hit F4 on the keyboard, that is going to give you all of your properties. So if I look at the XY position, I missed by quite a bit. Okay, so first number will go to 0.25, and then we will go to minus 0.25. And now I know that that circle, that hole is in location. What I was looking for that always kind of throws me is that when we do the circle and it's in the locked position, it's asking to enter the center point, but when we come out into the work area, I should be able to go to the keyboard, but it may have been that I was still in diameter. So let's see, 2.5 inches minus, there it goes. So maybe I was clicking and shouldn't have been. All right, so the 2.5 inches minus the 1/4 inch is going to give me 2.25 in X, comma, minus 0.25 for the second location, and then enter. And then
the dialog box for location.
Well, we came out into the work area, and you see this little box up here that says enter center point.
Yeah.
As long as you don't click and just started typing,
Got it.
that is supposed to do it, but it doesn't always do it. That's why it throws me on occasion. Is I get a little click happy, a little button happy, and next thing you know, it's not taking it. But then once you kind of have entered the value and then come out in that area, don't click on anything. Just type in the numbers.
And then separate them by a comma.
And it needs to be an X comma Y comma for your position. Yes. All right. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, so we could go in, enter values. Actually, we got to do one more, and then I'll do the mirror on the last one. So circle, center point. The diameter is still locked as the last. And then, like I said, my natural tendency is to come out here and kind of click or draw. So let's see if we go 0.25, and then that box changes. And I think there's supposed to be a way to, maybe it's moving the bigger box. Now we can move that one to a better location. Maybe it pops up there. 0.25, and then we'll go minus 2.25. And that will put it into position, and we accept it. All right. So the next one would be, we will see if it has the transform. Under transform, we can mirror. And so I like to kind of introduce the transform as our editing tools. When we go to mirror the object, it is saying select entities, and so I'm just going to pick one of the circles, and we can end selection. Let's see, is it all right? We're going to just do the end selection, and then we want to copy it, move it, and for the initial, we're not going to join. Join as a general rule is that we're going to move this down, or we're going to copy this down in Z away from our current plane, and then it connects the top and the bottom. So there are reasons to join, but I would reserve that one for way later. Concentrate on the copy and the move. Right, the x-axis, we have the angle, the vector, and then we go in and we pick the construction line. If it was centered about the origin, then I would just be picking on the y-axis to mirror it in x, or pick on the x-axis to mirror it in y. And then we go ahead and hit accept. All right, so I mentioned that you would start accumulating colors. We have kind of all of these different things from the selection. This is the result in magenta. This was the selection in kind of a reddish orange. The others are object geometries. When we start the sketch, we have the cyan. At some point, all of those colors are going to build up and get really annoying. We go back to home and click on clear colors. Let's see if it's added. So that's usually one I add to the right. Oh, there it is. I was going to say I used to have it to the right mouse button. It's also on the context. So when we clear colors, that puts everything back to whatever our objects were set to be. All right, so we are going to go look for the chamfer entities, and we set. So we can do one distance and an angle, two distances, and the width. And each time we hover over those, it's going to give us some description of what it's going to create. Probably the most common is distance and an angle, so the 0.25 and a 45-degree angle. So when we go in and pick, I pick the object and the second object. That's going to put in the chamfer. And then we are going to accept it and go to the next one. And our values should still be there. And I think the chamfer would let me go ahead to the next one, but probably going to be a good habit to go ahead and say OK and create new. All right, so drawing tools, not that difficult. When I'm through with the construction, since they're probably going to be in the way, we're going to hide those. They're still there. I can toggle them on and off as I need them, if I need them. All right. So one of the, let's go with a new one. I'm going to go up to 100. Okay, 1000. And this is going to be my object 2. All right, so if I hide these, So very quickly, I'm just going to run back through this, and then I will I'll pause the video, and we'll go over to the programming. All right, so I'm just kind of using the mouse wheel to recenter. And if we were to go back to the rectangle tool, one of the things that we kind of jumped over, notice that the locks are still in place, the 2.5 by the -2.5. If we anchor to center, then it's not as critical. We're going to be able to come over and snap to the origin, and that puts us into that position. I can right click and tell it to fit. And I really don't like that cyan that much, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Well, that one jumped out. All right, so now instead of drawing those construction lines, we have the axes in place to utilize from that geometry. So same thing with the circle and the center point is the 1.25, 2.5 on the diameter. Still want to click when I go out there for whatever reason. So if I'm doing the center, I can do 0, 0. That's going to put it in position. Since I realize, oh, I needed to be 0.75, not 0.25, as long as it's still in blue and I haven't entered the value, I can modify it and go ahead and accept, and then OK, create new. And then we go up to the 2-inch, and on this one I'm just going to come select that intersection at the origin. Now it looked like it shifted a little bit, so if I'm not sure, we're going to right click and analyze entity properties. So we'll pick on that circle, and that is the same as hitting F4. So you have a couple of ways. One of those is going to work better for you. I'm in the habit of picking F4, or selecting F4 on the keyboard, having that come up. But we can very quickly go through and see our 0, 0s, 360 degrees, and the color, the layer level that it's on, the style, the width, all of those properties come in. If you start changing things here, it changes the geometry. So that is the warning that comes with it, is don't change anything in here unless there is a problem with it or there's something that you want to modify. Okay, and then we'll go back center one more time. These were the 0.25s is going to start off with. And we'll take a look at this as a mirror and as a rotate. All right, so coming out, this one was 1.25, comma 1.25 to get it up into the quadrant. And something popped up on my other screen. All right, not quite sure what it did there, but I went back and so, oh, that went to the, how about 1 inch by 1 inch. All right, so rather than getting rid of that, I'm going to click on it, hit F4, which was the same as right-clicking, go to the Analyze. And since I've got a little button happy on my math, we're going to go back and do 1 inch, so I can either backspace over it, it shows the new correct position, and then I can hit OK. All right, so you can manipulate, you can modify as needed when you're going through these. So we already did the mirror. So I go into transform, we have a rotate, and it needs the objects that we're going to rotate. And in the selection, we have an angle of 90 degrees. And then somewhere we should be getting a total value of 4. All right, so depends on the software. So in this case, I hit twice, so it is not including the first instance. It is 3 additional. Some softwares may ask for 4 total. So we're just going to respond to the result, which is it got to 3 and I'm happy with it. So basically the one that we drew plus 3 more gives me a total of 4. We can go ahead and accept it. All right, so between the mirrors, between entering all the values, the problem with entering all the values is going to be, well, if I miss one, then I do the fast finger shuffle, and all of a sudden I'm putting in 52 instead of 25, or I get something mixed up. Then I'm going to be off on my numbers, which is going to put the toolpath, the drill bit, whatever we're placing into that geometry, in the wrong location. All right, so I can either translate this or move to origin. Move to origin is going to be about as easy. So move all visible geometry. to the current WCS origin based on a point that you select with the auto cursor. So select the point to translate from. We pick the corner, picks the whole thing up, shoves it down into quadrant 4. We right click and hit the fit, and we're right back to where we started with the other object. Right click one more time, clear the colors. If you haven't noticed, I'm heavy on the mouse button. I try not to go up here too much except for the commands for what I'm doing. So if I can find it on the mouse button, that's going to be my most efficient. So try and locate those items. All right,